and it let out this blood-curdling, guttural scream.
On the side of the road, he sees a deer carcass and something eating on it, which he thought was a bear. And as the lights hit it, it stood up. And, like, this gives me chills talking about it. He said it stood up and it had the face of a man.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Bigfoots of America podcast show. I'm your host, Bryan Sawyer, coming at you. This is episode 38. Now, let's talk about our eyewitness for a moment. I believe in giving honor to whom honor is due. I believe that's a biblical principle, that's a personable principle. Just giving honor to those people who not only helped you out, but kind of steered you in the right direction. So, my guest eyewitness today is Audrey Gallas. She is a Bigfoot eyewitness and enthusiast, but we kind of go back a little bit because when I first got started with this whole thing, Audrey talked to me and helped point me out in a couple of right directions, I guess you could say. So I want to give honor to Audrey today. Her and James Lady are the reason I've been on Small Town Monsters a couple of times. They've shown up to my town hall meetings. Speaking of which, in 2026, we're going to have 3 town hall meetings throughout Michigan. Probably in Traverse City, that's almost a done deal. Out by Grand Rapids, Paw Paw area, and then probably the Novi area. We're going to go bigger and better in 2026. We're teaming up with the Channel 12 TV network out of Las Vegas. That's a new streaming platform like Hulu and Tubi. Get your subscription. I'll try to include a link on that. But yeah, that's a new platform. The Bigfoots of America podcast show and Bigfoots of Michigan TV show are now on that platform. And we have so much new and more material coming. We're out almost every weekend filming an episode right now. Through the week, we're filming the podcast show. We're just looking to really shine the spotlight on Michigan. And then, of course, the Bigfoots of America podcast show helps take that out of Michigan to the rest of the nation. But back to Audrey, I just want to give a big shout out to Audrey because she's been nothing but kind to me. I've met people like Bob Dago because of her, Val Savala. So Audrey has been nothing but kind to me. So yeah, big shout out to her. Let's go ahead and bring her in right now. Hey Audrey, how you doing?
Hi, Brian. I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm good. You probably didn't know all that, but I hold you in high regard because
Thank you.
yeah, when I first got started, you were kind to me. And that was enough for me. And you helped point me in a couple of directions. And then just throwing my name out there to Small Town Monsters, you and James Lady. In fact, James and I should be getting together soon. He's going to do another episode on the Bigfoots of America podcast show, but also I want to try to get an episode with him on the Bigfoots of Michigan TV series. So thank you for all of those connections. Thank you for showing up to the town hall meeting. And just, that's just being supportive of what I'm doing. And a lot of people, there's a lot of fighting sometimes in this Bigfoot subject with different people, and you've been nothing but embracing. And so I just want to thank you.
You're so very welcome. That's very nice of you to say all that, and I'm glad it worked out so well for you.
Definitely, definitely. Well, let's jump right into it, Audrey. Everybody has a starting point to this whole paranormal world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And some people it goes back to when they were a child, whether it be, ghosts and demons and dreams and visions and all that kind of stuff. What was your starting point and, what set you down this path? Go ahead.
So I don't particularly remember when the topic came into my life, that I was don't remember exactly when it took place. I think it had to have been somewhere in my young adult life. I don't remember Bigfoot being part on my radar so much as a kid, but I do remember by the time the Monster Quest TV show came out, I loved that show. Like I've seen every single episode. And I was really, really into these topics that a lot of people might consider to be fiction, but I approach it from a nonfiction point of view. And I particularly remember the episode on orang pendek. I don't know if you ever seen that one, but that is like
Yes.
the short I don't know, I don't want to call them Bigfoot, but it's like they're short hominid. They're like miniature version of Bigfoot over in Southeast Asia.
Yes.
And it was so compelling. That episode was so compelling. I think they had interviewed National Geographic photographers that had eyewitness accounts. And it just kind of blew my mind. And I probably watched that episode. It's been a while since the last time, but I probably watched that episode 3 or 4 times. So by the time that came around, I was really, really interested. And so I've taken in, I was just really into the topic. I've always kind of liked going outdoors, being outside, going camping, hiking, things like that. I grew up most of my life in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I spent a lot of time in the Sandia Mountains, which is like in the stomping grounds of now. I mean, I wasn't aware of him when I was there, but Robert Kreider, I believe, does a lot of Bigfoot work there now.
Hmm.
And then I lived in the on the Gulf Coast in Alabama for close to 10 years. And I was heavy into the Bigfoot topic then. And I was taking in a lot of content. I at some point along the line, got the Bigfoot Mapping Project app. And so anytime I was anywhere, I would open that thing up and look and see, with the sightings in the area, and just found it to be fascinating. I mean, the thought that like there is this human-like creature out in the wilderness and on the edges of our societies, and that it just goes unrecognized. I mean, I personally think it's known, but the fact that it's denied, is it just kind of blows my mind that it's out there. And I used to spend a lot of time hiking and going to different parks. And when I lived right outside of Mobile, Alabama. And there's a guy by the name, you've probably heard of him, Mike. I hope I'm saying his name right, Mike Bluer. And
Okay.
he had an encounter close to Biloxi, Mississippi, which is really close to Mobile as well. And I used to spend a lot of time in the area where he had his encounter. And I mean, even thinking about now, it just kind of boggles my mind that it goes on, and it's out there, that it's happening, and that we're not doing more to learn about it,
Right.
a on a different basis than what's happening. I mean, obviously there are a lot of people out there learning about it, but just the unrecognized part of it. But so anyway, so then I moved up here to Michigan, and I obviously I knew Michigan was big on the radar for Bigfoot and Dogman. And so I started looking into, the Bigfoot scene here online. And that's kind of when people like you and Val and Bob Daigle came onto my radar. And I just started reaching out, following people's work, and just became very interested in what was going on. And it seems pretty rich, with the Bigfoot scene now, and like historically going back to the days of, I think his name was Wayne King, and there was
Hmm.
another man.
Yes.
Yeah, and then there was that book that you and I both we had talked about it before. I think Val may have been involved with that, and there was another man where they did the whole kind of survey of the thumb of Michigan.
Oh yeah, it's called uh, uh something Brenner. Is it Robert
Yes,
Brenner?
Robert. I
Yeah,
believe
Robert.
Robert
Yeah,
Brenner.
yeah,
Yes,
Robert C.
yes.
Brenner. Bigfoot sightings in the thumb of Michigan, and then he also did another one, Bigfoot sightings
In the
basically in the
UP.
rest of Michigan. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've read both of those. I don't think they're available on Amazon, but I found it through maybe Barnes and Noble or one of those where electronically. I don't even think that I was able
Yes,
to get an actual copy of that. So it's not like
same
really
here.
widely spread out and available, but it is out there if you want to get your hands on it. But fascinating books.
Yep.
And
Huge. Huge.
yeah.
That me you kind of it was all like a domino effect for me. You got on my radar. I was filming another TV pilot show, and then the Cass River sighting happened, and then stumbling onto that book and Wayne King and all of that in the Carroll, Michigan thumb area. And then yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm living right now. You know, my dad passed away. I moved up here, and I'm like, I'm living right now in like the middle of a Bigfoot triangle.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it seems like you really don't have to go very far, no matter where you are, and you can find things. I know when I first got in touch with James Lady, and he was talking about areas that were not very far from us where he had found evidence, and we know Scott is not very. I live I live in the suburbs of Detroit, and so. Uh, it's not very far away. You don't have to go very far.
Oh, right, right.
And yeah.
I grew up in Birmingham, Michigan, so just kind of grew up in Birmingham, Royal Oak area. And then like I was just talking to James, we're texting back and forth even as we speak. We want to get together and go to Dodge Park because supposedly there's a recent sighting there. And if you look at where Dodge Park is, that is an absolute.
I was at Dodge Park just a few days ago, as a matter of fact.
Are you kidding? Did you go because of the sighting or?
No, no, no. But I do think I do now that you mention it, I do think I stumbled across it, but I didn't know at the time.
Okay.
But I take my dog on walks, different areas, different parks around the area. So that's one of the places that we go to walk. But yeah, I mean, now my mind is like, anytime I'm in a place that's even slightly wooded, I'm just thinking like, I wonder, has there been any sightings here?
Oh, and that's the key. That's the key because, Scott Brush has started Urban Bigfoot. James Lady's been doing it for years, recording. That's another reason James is going to help me. I'm not the best tech guy, and James is just a pro at all the audio. And Audrey, if you want to meet me and James there, and then even if you want a TV episode on Bigfoots of Michigan, you let me know. The door is
Oh
always
yeah,
open to you. But man,
I would
that'd be
love
neat
to
to
do
get
that.
down. Okay,
I've yet
cool.
to meet James in person yet, so that would be awesome.
Oh, great, great.
hmm Um, so So yeah, that was how you all came onto my radar. And like I said, I have it. I've a lot of I spent. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. I've spent some time with Bob Daigle. He's shared a lot with me, and he has these maps that he'll open up and lay out on the table, and where he has like taken notes and marked down different places where people have reported to him that there's been sightings. And he's not so active anymore. I think to a certain extent, yes, but compared to what he used to be doing, and that's by choice. But I think he had a very good reputation, and so a lot of people felt comfortable talking to him about it. So he's got a lot of information for over the years, and this map that he'll lay out and show you, and just it's all around the Detroit suburbs. It is like
Wow.
going back to my point, it's you do not have to go very far at all,
Right, right.
but it's really fascinating.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, these guys, Bob's a pioneer, Wayne King. And then just going back, if you, like we were talking about, if you dig deep, see, all right, so here's my tangent. All right. As even today, I look on some of these sightings reports and all this. The Dodge Park one comes to mind because not only did supposedly an elderly gentleman see them, there's another younger guy I've been talking to who has seen them there as well. But what's cracks me up is all the people making fun of the sighting and all the people who are just out of touch with the reality of these things. To me, I always say this, these are the same people who sit home on their lazy boys on Sundays and they watch the Detroit Lions, and if there's not a good play or something, they're yelling at the TV screen going, "Oh, they should have done this or they
The
should have done
armchair
that."
quarterbacks. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tell you what, you get on the field with these guys, and these guys are
Right.
towering over you. I got a friend who, he reminds me of an NFL halfback or fullback, and these guys are built. They're ex-military or they're pro athletes, and so you're sitting at home telling these guys how to play, and that's the same thing with Bigfoot. You're sitting home not aware of people like us who are out there weekly just grinding, finding evidence, talking to eyewitnesses. It's like you're out of touch, but yet you want to make fun of other people for something you don't know anything about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the stigma has lessened to a certain extent, but there's still a lot of people out there that just like to make it the object of ridicule, especially there's a lot of people like that uh they have experiences and they don't want to come forward because it's traumatic for them, like
Oh,
not
sure.
some experiences are quite scary, and just the shock of seeing something that's not supposed to exist. And so, they're very tight-lipped about who they'll share it with. And so having people acting like that when somebody actually goes out on a limb to share an experience like that it doesn't help things.
Oh, without a doubt.
Hmm.
N- Now, over the past 3 weeks, so this has been a progressive journey for me. I have been very blessed in the sense that um, it hasn't been a struggle for me because of the eyewitnesses to go out and say find footprints and evidence, tree structures, footprints, and for me to be able to say, okay, it looks like we've got some evidence. But over the past 2 3 weeks, I've gone to the next level now. I've heard the Sierra Sound type howls. And then just this past weekend, I finally heard, and then at that same location, I heard a Bigfoot talk. And if you ever heard Sasquatch
Oh,
Ontario,
yeah.
yeah, and hear Neff talk where it's "Bleh, bleh, bleh." So I've heard that, but then this past weekend I'm at another private property location where the landowners want to stay anonymous because they work for the government and everything. I was out there and I finally heard my first what I would call the samurai chatter, where they're like "Blah, blah, 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 blah," and it's just like, oh my gosh, these things are so real, and there's so many more of them than we ever dreamed of. Now, that for me can be kind of worrisome sometimes. I think about the H.A. Miller document where, he's concerned about them getting too close to civilization and, food shortages. And if push comes to shove, us humans are going to be the ones that lose out. So, but
Is
yeah,
the
so
Miller is the Miller
go ahead.
document the one where he was like was he a veterinarian or a wildlife biologist or something like that, and like the government asked him to do an autopsy?
Yes.
I always
Yes.
thought it would be fascinating to go back and his learning about. I haven't dug deep into that document, but I am somewhat aware of it. And my understanding, if I remember correctly, is that he related the formation of the national parks to as a means by which to save some land to protect them. So I really thought it would be kind of a cool project to go back historically to the formation of different national parks and then relate it to any historical Bigfoot in the area, and just kind of see if there's a correlation there, if you can trace back, what prompted that particular park at that particular time.
Right, right. I love the way Val Savala put it. He said, "Look at the national parks in a different lens now. Look at them as buffer zones between humans
Yeah.
and these creatures. When you do that, then you go, oh, you go to the zoo. There's
Right.
there's a fence and there's glass between you and the lions. And this is the same thing. This is like, okay, so if you're going out and you're looking for these things, be very, very careful Be very, very respectful. Even where I go, we have a way of doing things. And because we've done them these certain ways, I always listen to the eyewitnesses. Okay, we got to do this, but don't do this. Don't go traipsing into their nest, let them know you're here, and then you'll get reactions. And don't be hunting them too much or they won't come out. They want to observe us sometimes as much as we want to observe them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think, I've only had the one sighting, but as much time as I've spent outdoors, I'm just thinking they probably sighted me multiple, multiple times. I've only seen them once.
Oh yeah. So with that in mind, let's go ahead for the folks at home. This show is on YouTube, but it's also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So why don't you go ahead for the folks at home and describe your encounter and what happened?
Okay. So, this would have been June of 23. I had gone to a women's stand-up paddleboard retreat type thing. It was just from a weekend. It was from a Friday to a Saturday. I had only lived in Michigan at the time for a little over a year. Um, it was at a place called Renny Lake, which is just southeast of Traverse City. I have to think about so I can say that right. Because I always want to say Traverse City, but it's Traverse City. Okay.
Right,
So
right. All right. So as you come back in it, just say, so I was in Traverse City. Start it with that line, or I was by Traverse City.
okay. So I was very near to Traverse City. It was just southeast of there. And there is a place not far from Renny Lake that is called the Boardman Trail. And it's many like intersecting trails. So if you only want to walk like a mile or two, you can do that. But if you want to do that morning I did a 6 mile loop, you can do that as well. Um, I parked at the parking lot that was closest to from the direction that I came from. I later learned that there was a much bigger parking lot and trailhead on the other side of the loop, which kind of comes into the story later. But I got up. I went by myself. There was going to be like a group outing for all of us to go there together, but I kind of wanted to go out by myself. And in the early morning, I like being outdoors in the early morning. And it was a gorgeous, gorgeous morning. I think I may have shared the pictures with you that I took that morning. I didn't get any of with my sighting, but just of the minutes leading up and after. But it was such a beautiful morning, and I park my car. I start walking around the trail. I'm taking pictures. I every little while I'll sit down on one of the benches and just kind of take in the sights. And there was lots of bird song. It was just a beautiful, enchanting morning. And Bigfoot wasn't on my mind. Honestly, it was not on my mind that morning. I seen some deer. I seen a variety of birds. We I walked almost to the actual Boardman Bridge, which goes over the river, and I sat down there for a while, and then I got up, I continued on. This is about the halfway point. I passed the main trailhead on my right. Now I'm kind of looping back to where I'm walking back towards my car. Up until that point, I was kind of walking away from my car. And I think I maybe passed two people on the trail going the opposite direction than me. So I passed the main trailhead. I am just past that parking lot. I see, and I'm looking at the river, which is on my left, and nobody else was around. Um, on my right, there was like a little outbuilding. It was like a small shed type building. I'm guessing maybe like it had maintenance related equipment in there for maintaining the park area. I'm not really sure. I can't really say for sure, but it was small. Um, and I'm looking to my left, and it's very quiet all around for the most part. Just like not much going on. There's no other people around, and I heard the snapping of a twig sound to my right. And because I thought I was the only person around, I, kind of caught my attention, and I whipped my head very quickly around to the right to see what was that. And when I did that, I saw something that was it was either all black or very, very dark brown. But the compelling part of it is like from head to toe to each fingertip. I mean, there was no variation whatsoever. And what I saw was standing up from a crouched position, and it was turning. It was like standing up and turning all in one very quick motion. And it turned, and it was I'm a really bad judge of distance. What would be a good example of how far away from me? Like a typical living room from one end to the other, maybe like 1.5 times that length. Okay, however many yards that is, I can't say, but wasn't that far away. It was relatively close, and it was off the trail. It wasn't on the trail. It was like to my right of the trail. And so I hear something, I turn, I look, I see this thing that's all black or dark brown standing up and turning to get away in like a super duper fast motion. I mean, it was so fast, and there was, it was pretty heavily wooded behind it, and it just disappeared into the trees back there as far as I know. Like I have a hard time figuring out like how it got away, because it just happened so fast that I can't quite, wrap my head around exactly how it happened. I stopped. I was like, I did not venture it back to where I actually saw it to like look for footprints or anything. For whatever reason, I didn't want to go off the trail. I was there by myself. I didn't want to go off the trail, but I stayed in that stretch of the trail, kind of walking back and forth for maybe like 5 or 10 minutes, because I was kind of excited. I was very curious, and I was hopeful that I might see it again. I was just thinking like maybe I'll see it some motion back there in the trees. Maybe it's hiding behind one of those trees, and I'll see it move away to another tree or something like that. And so I stayed for like maybe 5 or 10 minutes and was looking to see if anything else was going to happen, and it never did. And but by that point, I'm starting to feel a little bit scared, because, when it first happened, it took a few seconds for me to register like what was happening. And my first thought isn't Bigfoot, but my mind is trying to categorize this, like what was it that I just saw, and I quickly realized that it didn't fit into any of the normal categories. And um, so then I started thinking like, did I just see a Bigfoot? And then so it's I'm not seeing anything again. And I'm starting to get more concerned now, because I'm thinking, okay, if that was a Bigfoot that I just saw, and I can't explain it, any other way. It wasn't much taller than me, so I'm thinking it's probably was a juvenile, maybe like a teenager or whatever. And there's probably others around. I'm not thinking that that travels by itself. And so I started to become a little bit afraid, and thinking that I better just get back to my car. I'm the only person out here as far as I know. And I started to become fearful. So, but I did have the thought like, don't run. Whatever you do, don't run, because, I don't want to incite some kind of predator response or whatever. And so I was just trying to walk really quickly. And as I walked away, I heard a series of tree knocks. And, I had never heard a tree knock before that, and I haven't heard one since. But I had heard them on TV before and on podcasts or recordings, audio recordings. And usually it's like a slow rhythm. It's like a tree knock and then a couple of seconds and another tree knock and a few seconds and another tree knock. And mine was much more rapid than that. But you could tell it had a lot of force behind it. And all I could think was that that was some sort of signal. And so if you're sending out a signal, it's because there's a sender and there's a receiver. So that was kind of a confirmation to me that we're talking about more than one. And so I was booking it back to my car without breaking into a full-blown run. I remember because I have been taking a lot of pictures leading up to all of this, my battery was getting low on my phone and I was scared. And so I called my fiance and he could tell by the sound of my voice that something was up. And he was like, "Did somebody kidnap you?" It was funny. I said,
Oh
"No."
man.
Because I was talking kind of low, but he could hear like the fright in my voice. And I was like, "No, but you're not going to believe what I saw." And so I recounted it to him and I said, "Oh, I wanted to stay on the phone with him the whole time, but I also didn't want to kill my battery altogether." So I talked to him for a few minutes and then I was just sending him screenshots of my location just in case to be on the safe side. And so it took me a full hour to get back to my car. And one detail that I didn't mention is that the one thing that really sticks out in my head to this day about what I saw was that as this thing, I don't know if it was a he or she, uh, stood up and turned to scramble to get away, run or whatever it did to get away, it I the its right arm was at a right angle, very much like how you see runners who are taking off from the starting line, and their arms are pumping as they're getting away like this, and their elbows bent at a right angle. It was just like that. So my thought was like their physiology is similar enough to our own to where that's kind of a natural thing that I think people do to try to propel themselves, and apparently that's the case for them as well. So and and another thing is too is that for the 5 or 10 minutes afterwards when I was like hanging around hoping to see something else, I was looking back into the forest at eye level. I was looking through the trees at eye level, mostly looking for motion or movement to see if I could see it move again through the trees back there. And afterwards, I thought, you know, it all happened so fast. It's possible that it could have dropped to the ground. Like I've heard many encounter stories where people talk about how they drop to the ground and they kind of spider crawl. And
Mm.
if it did that, it all happened so fast. Like I couldn't keep my eyes on it altogether. And I wondered now, like if it could have dropped to the ground and, been laying low somewhere and I didn't see it, or if it scrambled away in that fashion. I don't know now, but I've wondered about that afterwards. Um, so so my sighting was very quick. It was very brief. It was the sighting and then the wood knocks afterwards was kind of a confirmation for me that that it was what I thought it was. I can't really explain it any other way. I can't explain the stealthiness of it. I can't explain how it moved. It was able to move so fast. If it had not made, I believe that when my dog is really wanting some attention right now, so she might come into the frame of the camera. So
Awesome.
if it had not made that original sound, I believe that original like twig break sound that I heard was it starting it, like it had obviously seen me before I seen it and decided it was going to try to get away. And in the process of doing that, of getting up, it maybe broke a twig under its foot or something as it was lifting itself up off the ground. And but if that had not happened, I would have walked right on by and never even known that it was there. I wasn't looking in that direction. It didn't make a single noise throughout the whole thing except for the sound of that twig break. That's another thing. It was super, super silent. And so yeah, I mean that just goes to speak to what we were talking about earlier. And like, God only knows how many times they've cited me, and I walked right on by, didn't never even see a thing. And that
Mm-hmm.
would have been this day too. If it hadn't made that one little noise, I would have walked right on by and never even known that I was that close.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's I mean, no, that's a fantastic account. I love your detail. It does remind me of the recent Monroe monster sighting to where the father and the son said, this thing moves so quick. Its legs were like a blur. So you kind of confirm that these things like take off like a rocket, they're
Yeah.
gone.
Well, what's interesting to me though is obviously there are times when like my account and like the one that you just referred to where they're obviously trying to get away really fast, but there are sightings or people talk about it and they're out in the broad wide open. They're moving at the pace that they want to move. They really don't care if they're seen or they're not seen. They're just going about their business regardless.
For
So there are
sure.
times when they don't care if they're seen. There are probably times when they purposely want to be seen. And then there are other times where they are seen and they didn't really want to be seen and they're trying to get away as fast as they can.
Oh, right, right. You might have walked in, maybe it was doing something and you walked in on it. See, too, I wonder too sometimes if they want us to see them, if they want to spur a reaction. Um, are you gonna be able to um go October 4th? We're doing a kind of a group meeting and walk through the Marilla Trailhead. That's in the Huron, the Manistee River Trail, North County Trail Loop. I'm looking at my paperwork here. And that's just south of Traverse City. So I'm wondering if it's the same area
Oh.
where you had your sighting. October 4th, anyways, Saturday, October 4th. We're starting to promote it now. We're just going to have kind of like a camera set up. If people want to do interviews, they can do that and then go for kind of a group hike. We're going to do the Marilla Trailhead, but I think it is in the same area where you were at. And because I haven't been up there yet. That's Wexford County. That's Dogman sightings. I mean, your sighting is in that general vicinity if it's just south of Traverse City. So, my
Yeah,
goodness.
I was aware. I have it on my calendar. I am hoping to make it, but I hadn't looked it up on the map yet to see exactly where it was. So I wasn't aware of the fact that it was that close.
Yeah, yeah. So just south of Traverse City. I'm trying to look at the whole thing. It's got a suspension bridge up there. I'm looking for the name of the bridge because you said your
Look for
name.
look for look for look for the Boardman Trail.
Okay,
Look for
might
the
have to
Boardman
pull up.
Trail, look for the Boardman Bridge, and it is very close to Renny Lake, which I think is spelled Rennie Lake.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna
Yeah,
look it
if
up
you
real
look
quick.
those things up, you'll find it.
Fantastic.
Hmm.
Well, so now with your accounting, so I don't care. I always make this statement. If you want to believe Bigfoot comes from the third moon, by the fifth ring of Saturn, hey man, that's up to you. But with what you've seen, and now, I mean, you're not an everyday person who maybe has looked up Bigfoot on YouTube once or twice. You have a broader understanding of these creatures. What do you think they are? I mean, do you think they're just a and that's fine. I don't care. Is it a biological creature? Is there any kind of woo aspect to them? We like getting off on that subject
Well,
as well, but what are your thoughts?
my thoughts are, I mean, definitely it's a flesh and blood creature. As far as its capabilities go, I mean, I feel like there's so much that's unknown about it. Like we really can't say for sure anything. For sure, yes, this, or for sure, no, that. There's too much that's unknown with it for us to be able to say. And if you look at other animals in the animal kingdom, like we know that there are animals that have abilities that we don't have.
Uh-huh.
Like elephants and whales and dolphins and like I would say dogs. I mean, obviously dogs are able to smell things that we can't even begin to smell. So who knows what their capabilities are?
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe that they are, I've heard, I don't know, I can't, vouch one way or the other for the various DNA studies that have been done out there. But I've heard that some of them have come back as it being a hybrid. I mean, I can believe that. Maybe it's a hybrid of a humanoid, a relic humanoid on one branch with another one on another branch. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a hybrid with something that's unknown. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Um, I
Exactly.
think that if they have abilities that humans don't have, I don't think that necessarily makes them supernatural, because like elephants aren't supernatural. I mean, it's just that it's just all part of the natural world. I do believe we live in a supernatural universe, no doubt about that, in my opinion. But I mean, I feel like they're flesh and blood for sure, but what they are in addition to that, I mean, it could be so many different things. It's just really hard to say. And I haven't had any firsthand experiences with those things, but that's not to say that, that it's not out there.
Right.
Um, and
Yeah, I think
you
I
can't
think that
discount
go ahead.
other people's experiences. Like sometimes, I mean, I've had plenty of experiences in my life where things have happened that I could never explain, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an explanation. It's just that I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I totally agree with you. I swung one way and then I swung another way. I basically started thinking, okay, Gigantopithecus, Neanderthal, whatever. And then there's a lot of supernatural stuff that has happened. And I'm like, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the Bigfoot doing it. And so, yeah, it is a huge topic and subject. I found Renny Lake, and it's north. See, where we're going is in the Cadillac area. So just so you
Okay.
know. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then Renny Lake is north of that. But they're both, Renny Lake is southeast of Traverse City. We'll be farther. Actually, if you drew a line, it'd be a straight line from Renny Lake right down to where we're going, just north of Cadillac, for your information.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been back. I've not been back to the area since it happened, but I would really like to go. One of these days I am going to make it back up there.
Well, if
I
you're interested,
Go
and you
ahead.
want to invite me along, I'll film. I'll come up, I'll bring my little camera, and
That'd be
we'll
fun.
reenact. We'll
Yeah, that'd be
reenact what
fun.
happened. That would be
Hmm.
great.
I when that first day when it happened, of course, I told my fiance, during the event, I told I the first Bigfoot person I spoke to about it was Val. I reported it to his email, and we had a back and forth exchange about it. And I told my son about it, and my son's really into Dogman, and so he's come to visit me a couple times since I've been living here in Michigan. But he's really interested in Michigan was definitely on his radar for the Dogman. But and then it's only been like within the last, I don't know. I shared it with Bob, and then I ended up writing down the whole experience. I kind of typed it up in a document, and I've shared that with some people in the last probably 6 months, with you included. I believe I shared it with you as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, we read that on
Yeah.
our Friday
Uh-huh.
night show, Bigfoot Live.
Yeah, that's right. That wasn't too long ago. So I've just kind of, at first I was kind of keeping it close to who I was real thoughtful about who I shared it with, but now it's just kind of out there, and I'm just okay with who knows, and people are allowed to think what they want to think about it.
Yeah, yeah, you have to steamroll ahead, you have to snowplow ahead, not listen to the voices, you know. For me, it's about increasing the knowledge. Bigfoot's right up there with UFOs, right now. Have you had any kind of, or family? I think you had mentioned before your son had a possible UFO encounter. Is there any, do you have any history too of like dreams or ghosts or anything like that?
Mm. Well, both of my sons have had some pretty interesting experiences, and I think they would be okay with me sharing it on here. My older son had some experiences with dreams where it was like he was going out into the universe, just like kind of like fleeing through space. I hope I'm remembering this good because it's been a few years since we've talked about it. And something like some sort of entity stopped him and said, "You don't want to go out any further than this." And then he woke up and
Wow.
he had like this weird hieroglyph type writing, like he had this image of it stuck in his head, and he was able to write the whole thing down on paper and show it to me. And that was really fascinating. My younger son just recently explained to me that there was a night, we lived in Alabama, and he had a hammock slung between some trees. And he was laying in the hammock and he was looking up at the night sky, and he saw a light that, like, it looked like a star, but it kept on going back and forth like this, right? And then he said later that night he went to bed and he said, "I had the whole," this was his words, "I had the whole you know how like you have the UFO shoots the spotlight down and then you get sucked up into the, like a person goes up
Right,
in the
right.
light." He said he woke up the next day and he had this memory of the spotlight, like a UFO spotlight coming down into our backyard right next to his bedroom window.
Wow, like a tractor
And
beam?
something like that. He said it a whole lot better than I did. And now I'm trying to recount it, and my explanation is not as good as his. But he said it when he woke up in the morning, he was trying to figure out if it was a dream or if he had a real experience, and he kind of checked to see if his window was open or not. And he came out and he asked me if I had heard any noise the night before. I don't remember him any of this. He just shared this with me a couple weeks ago. I don't remember him ever telling me about this, but I said, "Son, did you have any lost time?" And
Hmm.
he said, "I'm not really sure, because if you're sleeping, it's kind of easy to have
Oh,
lost time and not even know it,
right.
but yeah, I thought that was a really interesting experience because he has this memory of looking through the window and seeing the light coming down into the backyard, which is crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I
Um,
always ask that question because I wonder a lot, we've got Native American blood. I wonder if that's a factor. And it seems to be families that may be, see, I don't want to say more in tune, but they have more experiences than other families. So I'm just, sometimes I look for a common denominator. And that's, for me, that's a big enough common denominator. And I think I saw an orb like when I was out last weekend, on the investigation expedition we were doing. I couldn't get close enough to it, but I felt like maybe a reddish orb was watching us because it would move, because I would sit still and it would move from in between these trees over to these trees, and it would go back and forth from red to white. But then I'm like, there's too many red and white airplanes out there. Selfridge Air Force Base is just south of it. So I wasn't sure, and I'm very careful with that stuff. But on this property, they have multiple orbs on their game cameras and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just look for like certain areas or certain family connections that might just be more in tune. I always wonder about that.
Yeah, I lost my brother back in 2014, and I wasn't able to make it. I was living in Alabama at the time, and he passed away in Albuquerque. And his closest family and friends that were there went up into the mountains to, disperse his ashes. He was cremated. And they took a bunch of pictures and sent them to me. Um, and there is an orb that's present in those pictures. That's really interesting. That was really interesting. But there was a lot of like really like I felt like the veil was thin, during that time in my life because there was a lot of like really kind of supernatural things that happened leading in the months leading up to that whole incident, and then in the months afterwards, like I probably write a whole book on that. But so I've had some things happen, My brother and I, our very last conversation was via text, and we were talking about life and death. And he was murdered, so it was not like he was
Oh
sick
my.
and we knew he was going to die. It was very sudden and unexpected. And um and so, like, the day before, he's married, his wife's sister was very sick in the hospital, and she was not expected to make it. She was like on a vent, and the family had had a meeting with the doctors, and they had made the decision that they were going to take her off the vent, and they expected that she was going to pass away after that. And my brother and I were talking about this, and she was basically in a coma, and she wasn't talking. Her eyes were closed, like, to the external world she was shut down, but she was still alive inside of there. And he was relating it to me as, like, it's like the movie Johnny Got His Gun. I don't know if you remember that book. I forget if it was World War I or two, but the guy is basically has no arms, no legs. He can't talk. He's like trapped inside of his body. And my brother was talking about, like, it's such a difficult decision to make. Like, what do you do?
Mm.
And just talking about life and death. I mean, it's not a normal conversation that we had. And then this was on a Sunday, and then Monday night he was gone. Monday night
Oh
he
my.
was the one that was dead.
Oh
And
my.
and his sister-in-law, right after his death, his sister-in-law all of a sudden made a full comeback. She's still alive today.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I had a lot of things like that happen around that time. It was just like a lot. I mean, that is like that story right there. I mean, it just kind of boggles my mind. But yeah, we had a
Well,
lot
first,
of.
my condolences though, really. I mean,
Thank you.
that's anything that's I get it, people pass, but when it's unexpected like that, it's
Mm.
so
It was
so
very
much more
difficult.
traumatic.
Hmm.
Sure. All
But
right,
it
so
was an interesting time.
yeah, and I'm very sorry to hear that.
Mhm.
So you are Michigan, native right now. So let's talk. I wanted to talk to you about a couple other things. Been waiting
Okay.
for this. Um,
Okay.
you've heard some of this, we do a Bigfoot Live Friday night show. Just supposed to be fun and connect things about Michigan and everybody checking in to have because everything's so expensive nowadays. I'm like, man, let's just have fun with stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know until so I've had all the ghost dreams, the visions. I had this big production vision. We're signing the deal with the devil. I've been in the music industry at one time, and I had this entity come in and basically sign on the dotted line to sign your soul away to be in the music
Wow.
industry. Yeah, I don't know if
Wow.
you've heard that story. And it wasn't a petty
The
dream because at the time,
crossroads. The
oh,
crossroads, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And people are like, oh, yeah, whatever. No, this was legit. I'm working with one
Oh
of Phil
my.
Collins' producer. I'm working with people from Detroit. My engineer is Aretha Franklin's engineer. So I'm up there. I'm dealing with people in New York and Chicago, and I'm about to sign a record deal, and I have this entity come in a portal opens up in my living room. It comes in, wants me to sign on the dotted line. So I've had that encounter. I've had my ghost encounters. I've had an entity follow me from one house to another house. So now you couple all that together, and now my Bigfoot encounters. Um, I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck is it, Michigan? And what's the common denominator? Have you heard? So I've got this book, The Great Book of Michigan. And of course, I've got the Michigan Dog Man. How much have you dug into all these paranormal stories? Like one that blew my mind is I'm looking, so of course, UFOs ton have been cited. Now, the big one that stands out in my mind, and I'm wondering if you have heard this before, is the Michigan lake monster. I'm going to read this out loud. I've done this on our Bigfoot Live show, but I want to read it on your episode. It says, did you know that Michigan is believed to have its own lake monster? The monster, who is believed to be similar to the Loch Ness monster, is known as Pressy, sometimes referred to as the Lake Superior serpent. Presson is said to live in the Presque Island River where it meets Lake Superior. The monster has been described as long-necked, serpent-like creature with a large jaw. So if we throw that in, and then this book, UFO encounters, Dogman encounters, Hopping Man encounters, pale creature encounters. Have you heard of any other kind of sightings beyond Bigfoot that come to mind about Michigan?
Hmm. Not that comes to mind right away. I do know that I've heard of historical accounts, before the term Bigfoot came around, of like wild man and stuff like that they're pretty well documented. I've been interested in the like, you've heard about the mound builders. My understanding is that
Yes.
there's some presence of mounds here. Kind of
Really?
interested in delving into that. I think, my impression just on, things that I've learned is that we know that there is a very long history of there's up in the UP was a rich source of copper, okay, right? Going way, way, way back in time, people knew about that and were mining copper there. I think that they've, found copper that was sourced in the Upper Peninsula area, like in Egypt and different like places, like going way back and far away places in the world. So my point being is that I feel like when it comes to our history and even our natural history, there's so much more out there than we know. And I feel like the powers that be, whoever that may be, they like to stick to the status quo,
Mm.
and people are not always really wanting to break out of that. I would not be. I'm just saying, like, my inkling, my impression, my instinctive response to that is that there's probably so much history and so many things out there. I would not be at all surprised, like a unknown hidden sea monster in Lake Superior does not at all seem out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be at all
Even with
surprised about that.
Yeah, it's interesting here in Michigan because water being the source, and way back when those waterways connected everything. People used waterways to travel. They didn't have trains. They didn't, you had horse and buggy back in those days, and so the waterways were big. I heard recently that there's even a Phoenician connection to the copper mines in the Upper Peninsula, and that blows your mind. So then
Right.
I have two eyewitnesses up there in the Upper Peninsula on the northern side, the Porcupine Mountains. I have two eyewitnesses right now who've had multiple Bigfoot sightings up there and they believe because of those copper mines with caves and everything that runs through there. But yeah, and then man, you throw in the UFO sightings up there in the UP, you throw in all the dogman sightings that is rampant. I have another friend who I need to contact too. I guess there's some kind of old naval base up there in the UP. That
Okay.
was maybe a transponder or something for the U.S. Navy submarines back in World War II. And so there's a big electromagnetic field. And so there's more to that story as well, like possible portals, all that kind of stuff. But I've got to dig into that more. So it's kind of like, we live in Michigan, so of course we want to pride ourselves on everything crazy going on here. But
Yeah.
now I'm just looking to dig deeper into all of this and then just kind of bring the whole picture together. I mean, Wexford County, why is
Right. Have you
that?
ever looked into like what ley lines may exist here?
That is something. No, but you're exactly spot on, spot on. I
Yeah.
have not done any of that, and I've got to
Yeah, that
dive
might
into
be an
that more.
interesting way to tie it together.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll definitely dig into all that. Well, hey, Audrey, I love keeping my episodes to right around an hour. Man, you gave me everything I was hoping for, and it's a pleasure just to know you. And I know we're gonna bump into each other again as the days go by. And definitely, I will actually text you or messenger you, like if me and James Lady are getting together, and if you can show up, if you can show up to October 4th, that would be great. You want to do a TV episode, that would be great as well. But thank you so much for being on
Awesome.
the Bigfoots of America podcast show. Is there anything you'd like to say to the folks out there, where they can get a hold of you or contact you? Visit your profile on Facebook. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook under Audrey Rosemary Gallus. I believe I have it as three separate words. I've had to make different profiles over the years, so I've used different variations of that. But right now, I believe it's Audrey Rosemary Gallus, three separate words. So you can find me on there. Feel free to send a message that away if you're interested in getting in touch.
Awesome. Awesome. Audrey, once again, I can't thank you enough for, yeah, just helping me out when I needed help. And, that connection with Small Town Monsters, you and James Lady, in my book, I still owe you more. So I appreciate you as a person. And I'm going to go ahead and put you backstage right now. And
Okay.
we'll stay
Thanks a lot.
stay back there, and I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Audrey Gallas, spectacular sighting up by Renny Lake. And, a lot of people say, well, it's just a short sighting and all that. But Audrey's details, everything she said was so important. And that's what this show is all about. It's about getting the data out there, getting the information out there. Like I always say, I don't want my two sons walking out in the woods and having a Bigfoot or a dog man step in front of them and that destroying their lives or their whole paradigm. I want my family to be prepared for instances like this. And, not to diminish anything, but this is a very entertaining subject. And I'll tell you, Audrey just came to the table and she brought all that she had, and it is greatly appreciated. So, all of you out there listening to our podcast shows, we greatly appreciate it. Tune into our YouTube channel. We are also now on the Channel 12 TV network streaming platform. You can check there. That's a $9.99 a month subscription. But that show is very amazing, or that platform, because there's going to be there already is, but there's going to be more paranormal type shows coming there. For instance, Jeff and Willie from the Mountain Monsters, they're on our platform as well. And yeah, so tune into that. Tune into our YouTube channel. Go to Bigfoots of America /Michigan. You can put in Bigfoots of America or Bigfoots of Michigan, and we'll come up. We're getting close to, I think, 100 different videos now of the Bigfoots of Michigan TV series and the Bigfoots of America podcast show, let alone shorts and shorter episodes. So yeah, tune in to all of that, and we just want you to know we greatly appreciate you. Next year, 2026, we're going to do 3 town halls around Michigan. We're working on a feature film concept idea, so yeah, we've got a ton coming. You can also listen to this show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So, anyways, everyone out there, thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay tuned for more of the Bigfoots of America podcast show.